The Prisoner of the Ashen Lake by Oliver Kaufman. "What is it?" he asks. "What are we waiting for?" "Something, something," says a squeaky voice, raspy as though due to some impending psychosis. "Something." "Okay, and then what? What will we do?" Then we will," says the squeaky voice. Its eyes gloss over, lost in some vision. "Heck with this," says the man. But then some tiredness falls upon him, and his jaw goes slack, and he hunches over, his eyes glazed, as if his presence has slipped away to somewhere else. "No," he says to himself, "I can't. Not like this." "And what of it?" "I don't even know my own name," says the man. And all falls silent. A sleepless slumber falls over all don't even have time to regret it. Their eyes slip closed, and they stare within their shells at nothing. Nothing in particular. Nothing in particular at all. Why? Who knows? But these things happen sometimes, and a slumber wakes us to the reality of our own condition, our own madness, our own yearning, and the burning desire for something more. A desire so ferocious in its flame that it eats us alive even as we dream of calm and of rest. No, we are not mere mortals, and are, both at the same time. Who knows what to speak of? Who knows when we are all struck dumb by our own ineptitude? Who knows when the way that waits for us creaks shut, slowly, without warning, and as we stumble before its gate, tears almost in our eyes, we touch the bars of the gate and have no strength to open it. And as we wonder why, we get pulled back to our feet, back into the darkness, where there is, who knows? I do not know. I do not know indeed. A man wakes in his cell. There is a dripping sound coming from the corner. This place is damp and dark. He can barely move or sit up. He tries to move his arm, but it is shackled. The other arm, his right, is tied behind his back. He feels an itch on his face, one he'd like to scratch, but can't. Well, he could with his left, but he doesn't even feel like exerting the energy to move his left arm. Not at all. His eyes slide open again as he hears footsteps coming down the hall. Yes, it's this one here. "Hello," says a voice, loud and booming. The man's head is pounding. He looks at the visitor, but sees a wide, lion-like mask, like a sun, with a wide, out-of-place smile painted on its surface. His eyes slide shut again. What is this vision? What is this vision telling him? No. His eyes slide open once again. He can see the masked man approaching, although tentacles extend from all over the area below the mask, and so his visitor's humanity is questionable. Normally, the prisoner might be inclined to fight, but not now. Not now. His eyes slid shut, but then opened again, staring only at his feet. "Come now, man, are you all right?" said the masked man, who bent over and looked in the prisoner's face, who averted his gaze. "Look lively." "And why?" said the prisoner. "For what reason?" "Because today is the day of the great festival, and we should celebrate." The lion man stood up, and the grayish-black tentacles lining his body wriggled slowly in the air. "What festival?" said the prisoner. "The biggest festival of the year, and you're to celebrate with us. Come on now, get up, and look lively." "I can't," said the prisoner, and even though he knew he could, he did not wish to force himself to move. He felt drained of passion, of fervor, of the impulse to act, create, and change the world around him, or his fate. Had he just submitted to the forces of the world? And why? Or, what did it matter? Perhaps he could see what would become of his inaction. No, "That just won't do," said the masked man, who grabbed the prisoner by a chain attached to a metal collar around his neck and pulled. "Come on, come with me." The prisoner felt himself get dragged bodily from his cell. That is, until he reached the end of the chain attached to his left hand, and his arm was tugged roughly by its restriction. "Cut that chain," said the masked man to his assistant, or perhaps a prison warden, who was a crouching man that waddled his way over to the chain. "I can't cut it," said the assistant. "Sure you can," said the masked man. "Just slice it, or undo the manacles with a key. That's much easier." "As you wish, sire," said the assistant in a raspy, staggering voice. He fiddled with the lock on the manacles. At last the prisoner's left hand was free, and he sent his fist flying into the face of the assistant, who toppled backwards, nose bloody. "You fool!" shouted the masked man. "Now I know why we imprisoned you." The prisoner felt a rush of momentum, and it was like his will to fight flooded back into him. He set his sights on the masked man, but just as he prepared to strike, he felt a force restrict his left hand and pull it to the ground. "You fool!" said the masked man again. "What are you doing? You seek to attack me, of all people? I was trying to take you to the festival. Are you no better than a beast? And look what you did to my poor servant." The prisoner was confused, and looked at his right hand, which had somehow been freed. Was he doing the right thing? Were these men his enemies, or his friends? And even if they were his friends in intention, were they really his friends? He didn't necessarily want to go to any festival, after all, with all its noisy celebration. He didn't think he could handle it. He felt himself getting tired once again. "Guards, come and assist me," said the masked man, and several men with tall iron helmets rushed into the room and grabbed the prisoner before he fell to the floor. The prisoner stared resentfully at the four of them, breathing ragged. "He is obviously not in his right mind," said the masked man, whose mask now showed a growling frown. "Take him from here." "No," said the prisoner, his eyes rolling into his head, eyes closing. What was he? This pushing and pulling. It was all too much. Here or there or another place. Bound up, tied down, restricted, cajoled, coerced. Nothing made sense. Or did it? No, none of this. None of this. The prisoner fell into a deep sleep, and as he slept, he felt, periodically, his hands being tugged behind him, and sometimes, too, his feet being pulled outward in front of him. And why? Was it too much to ask for just a peaceful night's sleep? To drift peacefully, with no disturbance? No pulling, no pushing, no struggle or strain. It would be nice, yes, but why wasn't he getting it? He found himself in a starlit chamber. It was of a dark, peaceful blue. A kind of altar was in front of him, and in fear he envisioned his throat being cut, and him being used as some kind of ritual sacrifice. But no, he had to stay in the moment, here, now, with whatever was here. He tried to focus his sight on what was ahead of him, and felt something pull him back. A dark blue bandana was covering his mouth, and he was pulled back by it. Why? He cast his gaze behind him and saw the masked man, resentful frown still present, hovering over him. "Ha! I see how it is," said the prisoner, eyes feeling foggy. He didn't really see, however, so he didn't know why he had said it. "Quiet, you," said the masked man. "Man of the altar, what should we do with this mongrel?" The prisoner cast his eyes upward and saw that on the white marble altar some manner of being was curled up on top of it. It raised its head and looked at the pair of them. "Begone, all of you," it said in a high-mannered woman's voice. The prisoner wasn't sure who she meant, but he heard the shuffling of feet. Perhaps it was the guards, leaving the area. "Woman of the altar," said the masked man, "I apologize. I knew not your being." Begone, you as well, said the woman on the altar, although, at this distance, the prisoner wasn't sure who she was, and in a way she looked somewhat like a large dog. Was that even possible? Fine. Come, you mangy mutt, said the masked man, yanking the prisoner by his chain. The prisoner snarled. No, leave him, said the woman on the altar. Ah, as you wish, said the masked man. The prisoner heard him leave the room, slowly, and it sounded like he tripped on his way out, before shuffling to his feet and rushing away. It was at this point that the prisoner noticed that the entire surface of the floor was covered in about an inch of water. It was bright in the room, now, and the water glistened like crystal. When the door closed, the prisoner saw the dog on the altar get lifted up. Underneath, a grinning child, a boy, was peeking out. He jumped down from the altar and skipped over to the prisoner, his dog costume dragging behind him. Tricked them, didn't we? Said the boy. Now come on, we've got to get you out of here. Wait, said the prisoner, wide-eyed. Who are you? What are you doing here? Can you even answer those questions reliably if someone asked you? I'm here to help you, not bring you to some crummy old festival like that guy. I'm here to help you. Do you see what I'm saying? I guess so, said the prisoner. Somehow, he still felt lightheaded. The boy went around to the back and undid the rope binding the prisoner's hands, and undid the bandana as well. There, you're free, said the boy. The prisoner felt his bloody, scarred hands go into the water. For some reason, his hands felt large, too large, larger than they were supposed to be, swollen. He looked at his hands. It wasn't just a feeling. They were larger than they were supposed to be. As though a force was in his hands, they flew into his face, and the prisoner shot backwards, sliding along the floor until he slammed against the wall. "Oh no!" shouted the boy. "What's wrong?" The prisoner wondered, in his evolving misery, if he really was just a mangy mutt, or a beast. He felt his head enlargen and grow outward. He felt his teeth grow into sharp fangs. His arms grew larger, and he felt hair sprout all over his body. "What am I?" thought the prisoner, as his searching eyes fell upon his now clawed hands. "Oh no," said the boy. "This is terrible. Just wait right there." The prisoner let out a beastly cry that reverberated throughout and shook the chamber. He couldn't feel the left side of his face, but with his right eye he could still see. The boy had fallen over from the cry, but scrambled to his feet, running towards the altar while trying to look over his shoulder as much as possible. "What's going on in there?" came the muffled voice of the masked man through the door, followed by knocking. The prisoner's foot was holding the door jammed shut, and he rounded his attention towards it. He felt a visceral rage, and wished to tear apart the door, the wall, and all those who were behind it. "Oh boy," said the boy, looking more concerned than ever. His foot seemed bound by some tether which was attached to the beast, or, perhaps, to the masked man. The tether was grayish-black, after all. The boy struggled forward, but more of these tethers attached to the back of his body and held him back. Something about the restriction calmed the prisoner, and he felt a smile curl onto his beastly face, and his breathing slowed down a little. "Ah," said the prisoner, relaxing. And as he relaxed, he fell backward through the wall, sending debris flying. He didn't care. He didn't feel a thing. It sounded as though the masked man and the guards had jumped out of the way. But who could say for sure? Why did it matter, anyway? Peace, calm, surrender, rest. Yes. When the prisoner next opened his eyes, he was tied to a slanted surface. He felt better, and thought himself human again, although he wasn't sure. He looked at his hand and saw his nails were longer than usual, and the hair on his arms thick. Still, he breathed in relief. Peace. He felt someone slap him across his face and yell at him in a foreign tongue. He lashed out at the attacker, his jaw jutting out as he snapped his suddenly sharpened teeth. When he relaxed again, his face felt like it had gone back to normal. The attacker was engaged in a heated discussion with another man, but the prisoner felt as though he could understand what they were saying. They seemed to be discussing what to do with him. Ha! Such was his life, wasn't it? No one knew what to do with one such as him. A beast. A fragile-minded beast. Lashing out, too powerful to keep around. Non-compliant, confused, sensitive, and lacking understanding of both himself and this world he inhabited. The prisoner fell into slumber once again. And what of it? What then? Was that it? Was all finished? Was all at least said and complete, at least in what there was to tell of it? No. There was, perhaps, something more. More to tell. More to... The prisoner opens his eyes and finds himself in a narrow hallway, so narrow he can barely move within it. He doesn't try to at first. He's not in any rush. But still, he can barely fit in this place sideways or draw a deep breath. Why was he here and not somewhere open and free? No. Perhaps he, the prisoner, could expect nothing more than this sort of place, at least for him. At least for now. He felt something pulling on his leg. He looks back to it, and it seems to him that it could pull him up into the air, and he would be hanging upside down. Or maybe it was only his imagination. Or maybe it had already happened, and he was just refusing to see it. Whatever it was, did it matter? He scratched at his left ankle, where he had felt the pull. It was difficult to scratch in this environment, but possible. He cast his half-lidded eyes around the space in front of him. A dull glow illuminated the hallway, which was dark at the far end. The walls seemed made of a smooth, flat stone. He tried to look behind him, but couldn't turn his head. He got the sense, however, that something was watching him from the darkness behind him, its orange, smiling features both sinister and nonsensical. His eyes slid shut. What did it matter if he responded to the thing behind him, or what pulled on his leg? He could just ignore it, and the world would go sliding by. Perhaps, if he fell to slumber, some new scene would open up before him, and it might just be more pleasant a reality than this one. Yes, perhaps that was the way to go. The prisoner's eyes closed completely, but he did not go to sleep. Instead, he felt the smooth stone of the hallway's wall against his cheek, and its presence vexed him, even if only a little. Enough for him to open his eyes yet again. The hallway was still here, but it appeared to curve as it went up, going to the right. That was some change, at least. Was that thing still behind him? He couldn't tell, nor if the only substance that thing had had before was from the prisoner's own imagination. His breathing was ragged, and his eyelids fluttered. Nothing was coming of anything. His head fell back. Nothing. Still, it was silent and peaceful. He could certainly rest here, stuck between these two walls. At least he wasn't being driven anywhere, or coaxed, or manipulated. That original prison, the one the masked man took him from, that would have been a fine enough place to stay in. Yes, indeed. A fine enough place for a little while. Then why had his fight flooded back in when his left hand had come undone? Was it merely because other people were there? Was he fighting to get back into the prison? Or if he had been unchained, would he have sought to escape? No, he had felt no will to escape that place at that point, nor the room with the altar, really. After all, he had nowhere to go. But those people, all he was focused on, when he hit that man was halting their influence. Even the boy. Maybe it was just that the boy did not understand, even if his intentions had been good and more pure, less selfish. Even so, maybe it all came down to was that he, the prisoner, did not want to move or be moved. He was not in a rush to get anywhere, nor really knew of anywhere to get to. Movement seemed to happen on its own, and choose his own places to go. But for now, bodily rest was enough, to let go and be undisturbed. Perhaps that was part of why these walls were so comforting. They held him up, even as he let go completely. And nothing pushed him, nothing pulled him, nothing hit him either. No sense of urgency or movement, just stillness. It was at this time that the prisoner thought he could discern the moon far above him in the night sky, even despite how he thought the walls would block his vision of the sky. He reached up his hand to it, and felt comforted, letting his hand fall back to his side. He felt the breathing in his chest, slow and steady and moving in cycles, like the ebb and flow of a natural tide. The prisoner did not wish to control this tide, not even the littlest bit, and at the thought of this, he breathed in quickly, and was a bit bothered by this occurrence, for it was an interruption of that more natural way. Yes, he could control his breath, but why? He felt some tinge of anger at the mere thought of it. Still, he couldn't stay angry for long, and endeavored to just let his breath run its course without interference. Every so often he would doubt how well he was letting this happen, however, but he would try to, once again, consciously let go of his breath, even though he wasn't sure whether or not he had truly interrupted it. And these kinds of worried thoughts might make him sigh, and disturb him still yet again. Soon he was tired of this little game, but he tilted his head against the wall and wondered, but what else is there? No answer came, so instead he let his eyes fall shut, and he rested there for a length of time unknown to him. Falling through water. This was the sensation the prisoner had after some time. He was falling through water, with the surface far above him, the scattered light barely reaching him here. He could feel something, pulling him down further into the depths, but he wasn't sure he wanted to go that way, either, and shook off its influence. Instead, he floated in the water, somewhere between the light and dark, and felt tired, but awake. Still, surely, this must be a dream. Surely. He moved his hand through the water and breathed in. He wasn't drowning, so yes, this must be a dream. A comforting place, perhaps, but not very exciting. Exciting? He didn't want that either, really. Why would he care if something was exciting? Perhaps, he thought, it was a sign he was rejuvenating. Once that place of calm grew boring, maybe that was the sign it was near an appropriate time to move on to something else. Still, he didn't really want to. Ha! Yes, even now he could not act. What a humorous irony in action. The freedom to do nothing is indeed one freedom available to anyone, even a prisoner. Or it ought to be. No, some prisoners might be tormented by those who will them to work on indefinitely. But so too could even a free man be tormented by his own will to continue, to act, to do without stopping. Such people are also imprisoned, for even as they have the freedom to stop, they are not free within themselves, and as such, cannot rest. Something in them drives them on, enslaves them, even as they might harbor some wish to float, motionless, in a sea of their own existence. Yes, someone locked in a room could have this freedom, and a free man lack it. Perhaps they are unable to imagine a use for inaction, when, on the other hand, action can produce so much. What is not made but through action? What is not changed but by conscientious effort? Oh, so much changes, though nothing is done to change it. Thoughts flow, even as they are not set to any task in particular, such as the imagining of ways to get what is wanted, or wished for, or desired. So much changes, and will change, even as we lie dead in the ground, shut off from action entirely. Worlds and people and things and the motions of the living will all change, or come into some being, or perish. And who's to say that we do not remain, even as our ability to act diminishes? Ah, who knows? Who knows, indeed? The prisoner, all of a sudden, noticed a slight change inside himself. He felt, in his heart, an uplifted feeling, almost a relief, or a refreshment. It was like that feeling when waking up as a fever breaks, and function is restored. And with this restoration came a thought to move. Finally, we're done feeling that way, he could almost hear the thought say, and with it, he felt himself trying to strain forward in the water. "Did you not hear what I said?" said the prisoner. "Inaction is important. Do not prompt me to action so suddenly, and without my consent." "Hey, you had your chance to just lay around doing nothing," said the voice. "Now it's time to get going. Go places. Do things." "Stop!" said the prisoner, struggling in the water. He felt something from the darkness deep below, also pulling at him. "I'm fine here. There's no reason to go anywhere." "Sure there is, bucko," said the voice. We've got to... See? Not even you know what you're doing, or where you're trying to go. You don't know your own reasons." "Something to do," said the voice. The last word, do, echoed in the prisoner's mind. He kept hearing it, over and over again. That taunting presence, that insistence, this struggle to get loose from what was pulling on him. He felt himself transform into the beast again, curling from the tension shooting through his body, and letting loose a muffled roar as bubbles and steam burst from him, and went up toward the surface. "Can't chase your own mind," said the voice. "Can't attack it. As long as you're alive, there is some use for you. You can apply yourself to something. Surely you don't think I'll just leave you here?" "You are not my master," breathed the prisoner, snarling. "Then who is? Stillness? I can assure you it doesn't have much in store for you, kind though it might seem, allowing you to rest indefinitely. With stillness as your master, you're sure to lead a boring life, full of inaction and with little change, and certainly not much entertainment." "I don't need entertainment," said the prisoner, "and I can choose it when I will." "Ha ha," laughed the voice mockingly. "Move!" The prisoner felt his body contort, but he struggled against this, forcing himself from being moved against his will. If he wished to stay inactive for a while, even after feeling better, then that was up to him. Not whatever this thing in his mind was. Thinking of it, this voice reminded him of someone. Of the masked man. A festival. Entertainment. Yes, maybe that was it. Or... no. The prisoner found himself falling asleep once again, and sinking deeper and deeper into the water. "Hi," said a voice. "Welcome home." No, thought the prisoner, surely this was another trap. Another place with well-meaning folk, perhaps, who would nevertheless try to make him go somewhere, or do something. However, rather than this, he heard variations of the same voice, all saying the same thing. "Nowhere to go," they said cheerfully, with a soothing, comfortable tone in their voice. "Nowhere to go." And no room materialized around him, though surely it could have appeared as a house to him. No, here the prisoner's pillow was darkness, and his blanket a deep blue. Still in his beast form, he heaved a sigh of relief. Perhaps he was home, after all.